Well, let's get to our next guest. Actually, before we do, since we're kind of coming to break, let me throw out another couple CryptoCompare.com news bites, and then we'll get to our guest so we can spend a full, uninterrupted rest of the show with him. Let's see. User files to block IRS access to Coinbase accounts. A Coinbase customer has recently filed a motion in federal court that seeks to block the IRS from enforcing its recent summons for information on Coinbase users. The motion makes a number of arguments as to why the IRS summons is flawed, pointing out that the summons may impact more than 1 million taxpayers who have accounts with Coinbase. The IRS has, according to its own Inspector General, issued confusing and vague guidance regarding the taxation of virtual currency transactions, not providing taxpayers with clear information on how these transactions should be taxed, yet still seeking to investigate them. Overstock begins trading its shares via the Bitcoin blockchain. The online retailer Overstock.com has recently become the first publicly traded company to issue stock on the Bitcoin blockchain. Congratulations. Overstock has spent the past 2 years building the technology that facilitates this new way of trading financial securities. T-Knoll, I guess. Patrick Byrne, the CEO of Overstock, hopes to license T-Knoll's technology to outside organizations, including not just businesses like Overstock, but stock exchanges, banks, and other financial institutions. Zcash breaks $40 in ongoing price decline. Zcash, the anonymous cryptocurrency, known for its zero-knowledge proof technology, like Zcoin as well, has recently reached its all-time low in what seems to be an everlasting descent on the price charts. Currently trading at $39.62, Zcash has been on a steady decline ever since its launch on the 28th of October, when it reached approximately 3,300 Bitcoin, more than $2 million on Poloniex.
Well, that's a good segue into your next guest.
That is. We are coming to break, though, so let's appreciate our guest's patience. Let's go ahead and wait till the other side, just because I'm going to introduce him and then have to go to break anyway. But it is Juan S. Galt. He's a good friend of ours. We had some good times with him in Acapulco last year. I'm assuming we'll see him there again. We'll find out whether that's the case. And we'll talk to him about what he's been up to, including a documentary, if I recall, that he had started working on at least as long ago as last year's Acapulco conference. And speaking of Acapulco, don't forget, if you go to Acapulco.com and use the discount code CRYPTO, CRYPTO, you can get a substantial discount on your tickets to Acapulco.
Up to $1 million.
Maybe.
May not actually be $1 million.
May not be true at all. But we'll be right back with the Juan S. Galt. Stay tuned.
Hey, Juan.
Nice.
Thanks.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Thanks for your patience. I didn't expect it to run the whole segment, and then we only had less than 3 minutes left, so I didn't want to
And that guy's a wealth of information
he
for
is.
sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all good. It's
Yeah.
gonna be, it's
Yeah,
gonna
well,
be
like I said,
following that up, but-
we'll run a little bit over too with that. We just keep going, and then that'll end up on Let's Talk Bitcoin and all
Yeah,
that.
if you want. But yeah, we've got 3 segments.
Yeah,
If you want to do a 4 segments worth after the FM show ends, we can record that. So.
Yeah, which will be still running on the Facebook Live there. So, let me make sure my
Your makeup's on?
Giving without doing anything or spending any money. This is perfect. Thank you so much. Holidays logos. Are you debt collectors with phone calls, letters, or even lawsuits? Stop debt collectors now with the Michael Mirris proven method. Michael Mirris has won 6 cases in federal court against debt collectors, and now you can win too. You'll get step-by-step instructions in plain English on how to win in court using federal civil rights statutes. What to do when contacted by phone, mail, or court summons. How to answer letters and phone calls. How to get debt collectors out of your credit report. How to turn the financial tables on them and make them pay you to go away. The Michael Mirris proven method is the solution for how to stop debt collectors. Personal consultation as well. For more information, please visit RuleOfLawRadio.com.
All right.
Michael Mirris at yahoo.com. That's RuleOfLawRadio.com or email MICHMIRRAS at yahoo.com. to learn how to stop debt collectors now.
So much, that.
Okay.
Huh?
Was that one of the topics though?
No, not at all. But I mean,
okay.
we can mention it that he did the same thing with them that we're doing.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I actually wasn't aware of that.
But I just don't want to spend a lot of time on that.
Fair enough. All right, Rick, bring us back. Welcome back, guys, to the Crypto Show here on this lovely December 18th, 2016, here on Logos Radio Network, coming to you live on 89.1 FM TXLR in Austin. And, of course, you might be hearing us not live later on Let's Talk Bitcoin or Bitcoin Talk Radio or Liberty Radio Network, all sorts of places. Our next guest, we were just talking with Eric Lombroso, one of the Bitcoin core devs. A lot of information he provided. Very enlightening, eye-opening information, stuff that's a good sort of counterbalance to the previous episode we had with Roger Ver and Justice Ranvier, giving us additional perspective on this whole block size debate and other things.
And we played that song especially for him coming in because he's been on the line holding for the longest time.
Yes, the longest time. So let's get to him. Our next guest is none other than Juan Galt, like John Galt. He is an autodidact of philosophy, psychology, and economics, a blockchain journalist and a blockchain consultant as well. He specializes on decentralized 2.0 tech and information privacy. His Twitter handle is Juan S. Galt. And Juan Galt, welcome to the Crypto Show.
Thank you for having me.
No, a real pleasure. I think the last time you were on was in Acapulco when we did a series of back-to-back interviews with various people. And we appreciate that.
So he's in Mexico, and he's Juan Galt. So if Francisco de Anconia came to America, would he be Frankie Anaconda or what?
He'd be Frankie de Anconia, like a mobster, probably so. Well, Juan, for our listeners who may not know, tell us a little bit about. Oh, he's also a voluntarist, by the way. That's an important aspect. I meant to throw that in there. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became a voluntarist, and how you got into Bitcoin.
Wow, that's a great question. Actually, I haven't talked about that in a while, but I actually just got red pilled by Stefan Molyneux when I was in like grade 12. It's the first time I ever took politics in school.
Thank God it was that late.
Yeah, it would have sucked to figure out all that stuff earlier, right? Because you want to get the fuck out of school. But yeah, and so I just went down the rabbit hole and I started sort of finding this whole basically universe and sort of subculture of libertarianism. And in about 2011, I heard about Bitcoin as well through Stefan Molyneux, and I mean it's been kind of its own journey since then. I mean I got a little bit of Bitcoin, and then about a year or two later, I moved to Toronto. I think in about 2012 or so, I moved to Toronto, and I started hanging out at the Bitcoin Decentral incubator, which is one of the sort of main places where Ethereum was developed, and it's a pretty big sort of technology hub in Toronto. I think they moved the place where they have that at these days, but there's a strong big community in Toronto. So I learned a lot there from people like Anthony DeLorio, who is one of the founders of Ethereum and is behind the Jax.io wallet, and a lot of sort of heavy hitters in the Bitcoin space, a lot of the Canadians, and that's kind of where I started. I started writing, and I ended up getting published on a lot of different Bitcoin news sites. I started with Cointelegraph. I started with Bitcoin Magazine professionally, getting paid for it. And then I did Cointelegraph, and then I've done Bitcoin. Right now I'm writing for Bitcoin.com, and I've written for BTC News. I've probably written for like 6-7 different Bitcoin publications. And but my interest was definitely altcoins, and in part because I wanted to find the next Bitcoin. It's like, oh my God, Bitcoin mooned. I made some money on it, but not enough, right? So I started looking for the, money, right? And
I like
and
that. Go ahead.
Uh-huh.
No, it's so true. Like, Bitcoin moved, but I didn't make, but not enough. It wasn't
not enough.
It wasn't like 300% like MadeSafe coin. It was only 10%. But anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I made only like 50-60% profits. That's not. In the crypto space, that's the funny thing too, right? Because people sort of are used to like 0.25% interest rate on their bank if they're lucky, right? Their savings account.
Right.
In crypto land, we're dealing with like 10% up, 10% down daily, and if you pick the right altcoin, you can get 300% over a few month investments, right? So I mean, it's a completely different world, and I was just really interested in the next level of blockchain tech, because Bitcoin is a very much sort of it's a very simple thing in many ways. It's just you receive money, you send money. That's sort of the core of Bitcoin. But to me, it became clear that the blockchain was this sort of very, very secure place to put really important information. And that you could, once people started talking about smart contracts and decentralized organizations and stuff, I was in. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. I mean, I've been part of a variety of altcoin communities, SuperNet, Dash. I've sort of done some work with Dash. I was definitely involved in Ethereum Classic. And probably a few others that I've kind of sort of kept an eye on. So I've kind of specialized on the altcoin world, and now I'm part of something called Komodo, which is actually a fork of Zcash, which we can talk about more whenever.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to that shortly. Well, since we're on the topic of altcoins, you mentioned Dash in particular. Got a couple questions for you regarding altcoins. We've done a recent partnership with Dash. What exactly was your involvement with Dash?
Yeah, so last night at Acapulco, I got an email from one of the Dash marketing guys, and he said, "Hey, we had an idea. We'd like you to, we'd love you to go and do a speech about Dash on an Acapulco, right? And I bet you that the Dash budget system would sponsor you, right?" So we talked about it, and we ended up working out a deal with Acapulco. So they basically. So we basically had the Dash blockchain pay for a sponsored speech on an Acapulco. And so then I went on stage and I told the story about how I was sponsored by a cryptocurrency to come talk about Dash, about that cryptocurrency at an Acapulco. And I mean, to this
kind of
day,
meta.
It's very meta, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. It was a very satisfying experience for me, and it's the most popular video on my YouTube channel. It's got about 11,000 views right now. Yeah, so it's not bad for my YouTube channel. I bet you if other people published it, it would probably get more and stuff because SEO and whatnot. But so yeah, that's how it went down, and it was a great experience. I really like Dash. I'm a big fan of Dash. I hold a good chunk of Dash, and I still think that it's probably one of the best alternatives to Bitcoin, right? Like if this Bitcoin fork or Bitcoin sort of block size debate doesn't really pan out how we all hope it does, then very few other altcoins I think are positioned to sort of take the market, or at least enter the market. And I think Dash is probably one of the best ones out there.
Yeah, I mean, only the future will tell. But
Yeah,
I will say, given the knowledge dropped on us by many members of the development team at Dash, it's hard not to see them as a substitute if Bitcoin, weren't to pan out. God forbid, and we think it will, of course. But it is definitely, I think, as far as we can tell, one of the better altcoins out there. Well, and speaking of other altcoins, what other altcoins do you like? Are there any others that are worth mention besides Dash?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I have stages, right? Like sometimes I kind of play with this or that, but right now it's definitely Bitcoin, Dash. I'm becoming very engaged with SuperNet again and with Komodo. Komodo sort of their new kind of flagship, in a sense, cryptocurrency, right? Or their sort of one of their main sort of blockchains, and it's a fork of Zcash, right? So it's got that sort of hardcore anonymity, but they're doing some interesting stuff with it. For example, they're actually backing up a hash of the blocks of Komodo on the Bitcoin blockchain with this delegate network that sort of publishes it, right? And it's called a proof of work, delegated proof of work. So it kind of works like Steemit a little bit, right? Like people sort of say, hey, I want to be a delegate, and if people vote for you to be a delegate with their coins, like it's a proof of stake voting mechanism. If they vote for you, then you get to be a delegate, you get a little bit of money out of the block reward, and then you get to sort of host this special node, sort of like a master node in Dash, that has certain privileges, right? Sort of one of them is lower difficulty mining, and it also gets to sort of submit these hashes of the Komodo blockchain to the Bitcoin blockchain.
This sounds pretty juicy. And then, sorry to interrupt, but
Sure.
let's talk more about this on the other side of the break with
Sure.
Juan Galt. Interesting stuff. So we'll be right back to talk more about delegate proof of work in Komodo. Stay tuned.
Yeah, let's talk about how we can do
Or
it.
delegated, I guess. Delegated. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah,
I've been a delegate, but that was politics.
Yeah.
Oh, Juan. Yeah, you
Yeah.
you accidentally said the F-bomb on air.
I can't? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. We can't cuss.
Okay.
Yeah, we
I will
can't
not
say like
cuss.
the George Carlin those words. Like
None of the George Carlin words. Okay, good.
or hipster. Can't say hipster. We can't say.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
That's just our code.
That's our code.
rule.
No.
Why hipsters?
I don't know.
Do you really need to ask?
No. They have this like during South by Southwest here. They have this like game that you go downtown and play. It's called Hipster or Hobo. And you have to figure out whether someone's a hipster or a hobo. It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah. One day the hipsters will take over the world, and then all the new hipsters will just look like normal people again.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I've been watching Shameless, and
Really?
yeah, and like the last season, that it's kind of the deal. Like the hipsters are taking over their neighborhood, and they all come to the bar. And it's like they want to go. They have this map or whatever. Like, where's the shittiest bar in town? So like, if you're
That's
just like
funny.
if you're just the absolute worst dive there is, that's where the hipsters will flock
That's so
there
true.
and pay you too much money.
That's so true. That's so funny.
That is such a good series. Is
it really?
Oh god, I love it.
I didn't pick you as a.
It's pretty funny.
Really?
Yeah.
I've actually never seen it.
That guy for president, whatever his name is, the really crappy dad.
I don't know.
I forget what his name is.
I haven't seen it. Wasn't it a British show originally, too?
Yeah, I think it's like almost exactly the same. The British one. You've got 39 seconds. Yeah, I'd like to hear more about this. This delegate thing. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
And how... So it's just a fork of Zcash? Is it similar to Zcoin?
No, it's a straight out copy of Zcash. Like
Oh, okay.
they use it. It's straight out. Well, they made modifications to it so that you can do the delegate thing, but
Right.
and a variety of other things. But it's even the parameters, like the sort
Right.
of
Well, that
Yeah.
I mean, Zcoin is the same. It's zero proof knowledge. That's
yeah, but Zcoin is the older version, right? So
Right.
Zcoin was basically what the Zcash team
Yeah.
developed before they developed Zcash.
right.
Yeah.
And it,
That's nice.
it was actually available. It should be on Poloniex. I mean, it was out before Zcash was. Shit.
It's it's definitely on Bittrex. I bought a little bit at some point.
You ready?
All right, looks like we're coming back. Rick, bring us back when you're ready. All right, welcome back to the Crypto Show. It is our second to last segment. Might have some more recorded stuff for our online listeners, though, so check in for that. We're talking with Juan Galt. His Twitter is Juan S. Galt. And we were just talking about first we were talking about Dash, since he is into altcoins quite a bit, and his speech he gave last year in Acapulco about Dash. It was sponsored by their governance system, and we're talking now about Komodo and what he termed delegated proof of work. Now, let's get back to that. We were interrupted by the break, but explain again what delegated proof of work is and how that works, and tell us more about Komodo.
Yeah, it's a very interesting idea. It's basically, you know how Dash has masternodes, right? Like this special kind of full blockchain clients that have special privileges, right? Well, what Komodo does is it says, okay, we're going to have 64 people, say 64 servers distributed around the world that have a special superpower, and that superpower is to grab a hash of every block in Komodo and then put a copy of it on the Bitcoin blockchain. And the whole purpose of this is to protect the smaller blockchain, right? Which is in this case Komodo. It's a copy of Zcash with some modifications to protect it from mining attacks and a variety of other attacks. So if the blockchain fails for some reason, if there's a major fork, if let's say there's a major sort of mining pool that just hits Komodo and 51% is attacked, which is something that's happening in the altcoin space for smaller hash rate blockchains. Well, there's a backup of the latest block on the Bitcoin blockchain, so people can choose to restore to that one, or at least they know which way to go, right? And so that's kind of like the general idea. There's a variety of benefits to sort of backing up on Bitcoin, but the whole sort of point is that basically your blockchain is secured by Bitcoin, which has a great deal, like is the most secure network in the world as far as sort of cryptography and stuff, right? So hashing power.
That's pretty brilliant. No, I like that. And what's really cool about that is it gives, like you said, Komodo an advantage over all other altcoins by leveraging the security of the Bitcoin network, which boosts the appeal of Komodo as an altcoin to the marketplace, but it also enhances the appeal and demand for Bitcoin simultaneously. So it's sort of a symbiotic relationship between Komodo and Bitcoin that will actually improve, or likely improve, the acceptance and long-term viability of both coins. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that the mission for the SuperNet and for James Lee, who's the lead developer of the SuperNet, has always sort of been to unite the blockchains as much as possible. In fact, the big vision of Komodo and the SuperNet is to create a decentralized cryptocurrency exchange, like as decentralized as we can exchange. And this sort of Komodo system is a big part of that. I think that there's a lot of sort of infighting in the crypto space, just as there is in libertarian space, and that's a healthy thing because it's a sort of competition and sort of feedback mechanism.
Right.
But at the same time, it's important for us to band together against sort of the bigger monsters out there that we get to fight, and being able to do like cross-blockchain transactions and being able to sort of leverage each other's security and each other's features is, I think, really powerful and could really turn the blockchain altcoin sort of ecosystem, which is somewhat connected but still basically a lot of different islands, just turn it into a kind of super organism, right? And so there's a lot of potential, right? And it's, I'm not saying that SuperNet is going to achieve all of this. There's a lot of projects out there, but I really like the vision, and this guy and a lot of people in this community have been working on this for a long time over highs and lows, bull and bear markets, and so I like what they're doing. And so I decided to run for delegate. I'm actually going to be one of these delegates. And so if you want to vote for me, if you got some Komodo coin, or if you want to ever get some Komodo coin, then the election is probably going to be in the next maybe 2 months. And you can vote with your coin. So for every coin that you have a certain amount of power to vote, right? It's a proof of stake voting system. So the more coin you have, the more weight you have when you vote. So you can vote for me, Juan Galt, in the North American server. And it's a very interesting thing.
Did I hear? Wait a minute. This is an anarchist asking for someone to vote for him?
I know, right?
What?
Dun, dun, dun.
I just snapped through the matrix, man.
The matrix has him again. Oh no. Yeah. Well, and we wish you luck on that. Maybe we'll look into Komodo ourselves, and
I don't know. I always vote for SpongeBob. It's going to be hard for me.
It's going to be hard. Yeah, SpongeBob.
Let me try to propagandize you a little bit. It's totally voluntary, opt-in cryptocurrency space. It's totally opt-in, so that's why I'm okay with it.
Sold. Okay, deal.
There we go. Yes.
Well, we'll look into it. And actually,
Brilliant.
that's a good reason to have you back on when the voting happens in a couple of months. And good luck to you. Well, so it's got the delegated proof of work, which is cool. Link to the Bitcoin blockchain, and it's you said it was a fork of Zcash or Zcoin?
Zcash.
Zcash. And you've been talking about SuperNet. Sorry, how does SuperNet play into it? What is SuperNet?
Oh, I'm sorry. So SuperNet is sort of the big kind of umbrella organization that's trying to sort of build a decentralized cryptocurrency exchange. Komodo is the heart of this organization, in that it has like a hardcore anonymity layer through which the value flows can go, and then they can sort of, it's kind of like it's sort of the anonymity core, right? So if you want anonymity, it's enabled by default, and you can do the sort of transparent transactions if you wish, but it's the anonymity side of things, basically.
Cool. And yeah, of course, Zcash is based on the zero knowledge cryptography, which is pretty cool stuff. And we've had Gary Lee of Zcoin on to talk about their version of it. We'll have some other questions for you, but what other cool features of Komodo do you want to tell us about, or anything else?
Well, I think that's sort of the most interesting feature right now. I think in the future, the goal is to have a professional-grade trading platform and interface, so that people can go and trade on top of a decentralized exchange, just like you would go and trade in Poloniex, but with the security that comes with the centralized exchange, right? I think centralized exchanges are getting better, but they're still centralized and they're still big targets. So to whatever degree we can break free of decentralization points, we can hopefully, I think ideally, we'll probably be able to break free from a lot of the legal attacks and the cyber attacks that can sort of fall upon us. So it's sort of this decentralized exchange is sort of one of the meccas of the Bitcoin space. There's a lot of people that are working on it. Bitsquare.io is another great project that are doing decentralized exchange technology, and so that's kind of the big picture goal, and we're working our way there. But for now, I think that's sort of this is the most immediate sort of feature and thing that's going to be happening in Komodo in the next few months.
Okay, and then where can people learn more about Komodo?
Yeah, so look up Komodo blockchain or Komodo cryptocurrency. I think supernet.org is probably the best website to go to, but if you look up Komodo blockchain on Google, on any kind of search engine, right, like DuckDuckGo or whatever, then or even the big Google, you'll definitely find it. So
cool. Excellent. It sounds like an interesting project. We'll have to have you on again to talk more about it as things develop. Got 2 minutes till break. I want to talk to you real quick. What are your thoughts on the whole Ethereum Classic, DAO exploit and the resultant fork? Do you think the fork and the transaction reversal was a good thing, or are you a supporter of Ethereum Classic, or what do you think?
I'm a big supporter of Ethereum Classic. I think Ethereum Classic is a necessary sort of pushback on that temptation that is always going to happen whenever you have people with significant amount of power. They're going to want to sort of change the rules, and so Ethereum Classic is a pushback to that. At the same time, I see the position that Ethereum people were in, and I understand the temptation, and I understand why they did that in that instance. As I think Andres Antonopoulos said, this was the best case. It was the perfect enemy to do a reverse transaction type fork against, because the guy was obviously evil, right? Like clearly a bad guy, clearly malicious, right? Forks that are sort of that occur under more controversial, even more controversial kind of events would be pretty much, would probably do a great deal of damage, if not destroy a cryptocurrency. So.
Isn't Ethereum also possibly looking at some more forks?
They've done three. To my knowledge, they've done 3 forks already, and they're going to keep doing forks. I actually interviewed Vlad. Vlad. He's one of the lead sort of researchers of Ethereum, and he was very upfront and frank with me. He said, "We are okay with forks, and we're going to keep. I'm okay with forks, and I think we're going to keep doing forks until we are comfortable at where the foundation is laid, right? So they're very liberal
Coming to
as
break.
far as forking goes. Let's just
We'll
say.
be right back on the other side with Juan Galt. Vlad the Impaler impales people with forks.
I mean, so that's obviously something that Bitcoin should be worried about if it forks. Is that other unseen forks are inevitable.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Once you go, black,
guaranteed.
can't go back, or however that goes, right? They just got to. Once you forked, you got to keep forking. Fork
Damn
it.
right. Fork it, baby. Yeah, so that's the headline of your podcast. Ethereum is a very liberal with forking.
Liberal forking. Hey, on Zcash, wasn't that so? When it came out, I don't know if it's any different now. It was like 12-hour transaction time. What the fuck was that?
I don't think it's that much, but it was like a couple of minutes. Like if you want to sign a transaction, this is what I heard at the time when it launched. Like if you wanted to sign and send a transaction, it took 2 minutes for the crypto to do its thing, and then,
No, I
be
heard
ready
like
to send the transaction.
like people couldn't cash out in the initial, when it went online. That people could not sell their coins for like 12 hours. So they would receive their mined coin, but they couldn't sell it for another 12 or 24 hours or something like that. So
that was a really sketchy thing that some of the pools did, and this is why people are like cynical in the crypto space. This is why traders enter the crypto space all enthusiastic and leave like cynically, because I think I don't know how many, but definitely some of the big mining pools, they mined the Zcash but didn't let people withdraw them.
Right.
And the reason it may be because they wanted to dump their coins on the market while the price was ridiculously high.
Which is how they got it up to 30,000 bitcoins or whatever it was, 3,000.
$2.2 million for a Zcash unit was the top price, to my knowledge.
Right. And that was just somebody selling their self a coin, basically.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, I have this coin. Let me sell it for this amount, and I will buy it for that amount.
There's probably like 5-10 people there
Yeah.
thinking that they're gonna be billionaires, and so they're selling and buying and stuff.
I hope I really hope that it just crashes to nothing.
Well, I think it's gonna crash pretty far because you can't really beat a $2.2 million a coin price.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, there's nowhere but down.
Yeah.
But at some point, it's gonna find the bottom, and I think.
Well,
I think that
let's talk about
technology
that.
seems
Sorry,
to be
we're
good.
coming to air, so let's talk about that on air. Rick, bring us back. Welcome back, guys, to our final live air segment with Juan Galt, our guest. And we were talking about Komodo. You can check it out at, what was it, supernet.net? .org, sorry.
Let me,
and interesting stuff. We'll have him on again to talk about more about that as things develop.
Satoshi Komodo.
Satoshi Komodo, exactly.
Yeah, so, KomodoPlatform.com is the website.
Oh, KomodoPlatform.com, thank you. And what were y'all just talking about off air as we were coming to break? I think y'all talking about Zcash and the outrageous sort of price it commanded at first. You had some comments to make on that?
Well, I guess when it first started out, if you were mining the coin, you couldn't actually sell it for 12 hours. So, people thought that they were going to just get hugely rich, and by the time they could actually sell their coin, well, that wasn't
deflated
really,
from there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why people were convincing themselves that was too good to be true.
So,
probably.
Yeah. And I was just curious if Komodo had a faster transaction time than Zcash, or what the transaction time is of Zcash currently. I had no interest in it at all.
Gotcha. Well, and we were talking about Ethereum and Ethereum Classic too when we were coming to break, and Juan was saying, and I generally concur, that Ethereum Classic is what I would support because I think immutability is important. But Juan, you were saying that because the guy who committed the exploit was pretty bad, that at least it was the sort of best case scenario for doing that. Was that right?
Well, it creates an interesting set of incentives, right? So, realistically speaking, this was a strategic choice, right? The Ethereum core and the Ethereum community decided, okay, we have a clear decision. We either say, too bad, we're going to lose a huge amount of money, like 10% of our, 14% of our of Ethereum before we transition to a proof of stake, which later on was said that it wasn't that big deal. But anyways, it was a big deal, right? Big decision, and it was either roll back or take the hit, right? And they decided to roll back, and I think that it was the worst enemy. Like this, the archetype of the bad, malicious hacker was this guy, right? And so it was kind of justifiable, right? I think in a sense, like I understand sort of both perspectives. I think that immutability is crucial. I think that they definitely hurt their platform by doing that. But at the same time, like it's a tough choice. So in a sense, I don't really have hard feelings against Ethereum. I think that their strategy now has become one where they're very liberal about forking, which is definitely fun and exciting. And so they've had like 3 forks now, and you know what? They become more agile in this way. When bad malicious hackers believe that you are capable and willing of doing a rollback if necessary, then they're going to be more hesitant to attack your blockchain. If your blockchain is, hardcore immutable, then there's a safety for bad players to sort of attack your chain, because if they succeed, they know they're going to get their coins. So it creates an interesting set of incentives, and it doesn't mean that the incentives trump principle, right? But it's just kind of something interesting to think about, right? I'm glad that it happened. I think it's taught people a lot of lessons, and we're probably going to be talking about Ethereum and Ethereum Classic for a long time. So I'm quite happy with the whole thing.
No, I mean, you bring up a very good point. There are sort of pros and cons to immutability versus, non-immutability, or a cryptocurrency that's likely to easily fork to reverse malfeasance on its blockchain. So it's a very interesting point that I think gets missed in a lot of this debate. And you're right. I think the whole Ethereum issue will be a case study for a long time going forward, and probably will continue to mount additional aspects to that case study as other forks occur and whatnot. Well, what other altcoins do you like, and then what other sort of blockchain tech do you like as well?
Yeah, I think I'm only tangentially educated on MadeSafe, but my instinct is that they have something really magical and special there. And so I've been wanting to sort of kind of get into it. I just haven't had the time to really dig in. But I like what MadeSafe is doing. I have a little bit of MadeSafe. I was involved also with Cinero. Cinero is sort of like a decentralized social network in a very sort of hardcore crypto way. They had a big sort of dramatic kind of split recently, and the price crashed, right? So they're in the middle of like a big drama.
Yeah, Greg Meredith left. One of the main.
Well, no, he got booted out by the CEO. Like the CEO and the CTO had they basically broke up, and then it just split the community in half. So right now they're in the middle of that process. I'm going to make a YouTube video about it in the next few days.
So a Door Conforti.
Well, Door. I mean, okay, we're talking about it, so let's just go with it. Door, basically, the CEO allowed this second crowdfunding campaign on crypto and on Bank to the Future to happen based on marketing the technology that Greg was developing. And after raising $4 million, the guy's like, you know what, we're just not going to really give you the money that you want to build this thing, right? And Greg's position is like, you're choking the project because you're not giving us enough money. Of course, Greg's issue is that he went into business with a guy that would do that, right? And so it's an ugly, bad kind of governance problem, right? Like it's a bad thing that happened, and everybody looks a little bit bad one way or another. But I really hope that people kind of work it out, because the vision of what Cinero was trying to build is incredible, and we need it so badly. We need decentralized, censorship-resistant social media. Today we're seeing so much online censorship sort of slowly creep up, right? Like apparently the powers that be are bringing Chinese level censorship to the United States, to Europe. It's already in Europe, right? And we're gonna have to sort of figure some shit out because figure something out because Facebook's already sort of implemented.
Have you looked at yours?
No.
No. That's another. It's another blockchain social network that's basically coming out. We'll have to
Really?
have that guy on. Yeah, I think it's Charles X Ryan or something.
Charles
like that.
Xavier.
Something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, yeah, I mean, Scenario definitely seemed like an incredible project when we had a couple of their guys on. I can only hope that they're able to continue with developing it because it would really make the world a better place, and certainly the crypto world. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, MadeSafe seems to be hanging in there, and we've had John Ferguson, the sort of unofficial spokesperson for MadeSafe, on many times, as well as
And Storage, which
Storage is a cool
basically
one, too.
it's based off of MadeSafe, and you're going to have a similar option with Demon Saw, and that's
Demon
actually
Saw.
that'll be coming out in the next few days, and we'll be testing it with them.
Oh, awesome,
yeah.
with Ija. That's
Yeah.
great. And maybe
The messaging they have a
John McAfee as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be an encrypted messaging app
Real quick, my
for
mother.
Android.
Since we're gonna have more time with him, real quick, my mother saw some documentary or something on John McAfee, and like she called me up and she was like, "Now, you've had John McAfee on the show, right? I watched the show, and supposedly he did X, Y, and Z, and like I'm kind of concerned because you've had him on the show." And I'm like, one, I can't speak to any of those things. I give him the benefit of the doubt that these things didn't happen. Two, he seems like a really sane, normal, kind of awesome guy. And three, it's a radio show.
I don't know about sane, but
Well, maybe not
I mean,
sane.
I did do bath salts with him.
It was true, but look at the company he kept there. But three, it's a radio show. It's not like he's in studio. But anyway, John McAfee, we can't wait to have you back on.
They were organic bath salts.
Well, that's the difference. One of our favorite guests, and my mother's misgivings aside. Anyway, 3 minutes till break. I wanted to talk to you about your documentary when we do the post-recording, since we only have 3 minutes for airtime. Excited to find out what that was all about and how that's coming along.
Let me give you the quick brief on the documentary. So I finished it about like maybe 10 or 8 months ago, and it basically tells the story of a lot of the people that are moving to Acapulco, a lot of the anarchists and volunteers that are moving to Acapulco to kind of opt out of the system and sort of build their own community. And I think we're at heart, we're nomadic, but we really like Acapulco because there's enough people here and the view is great and things are really cheap. And a lot of the fear-mongering about security is pretty much fear-mongering. You don't go into certain areas and you're good. And so it's really kind of like a weird paradise down here. And so we're having a great time. So check it out. It's at Coin Olympics, or look up Juan Galt and then an Acapulco documentary on YouTube, and you'll definitely find it.
Cool.
Yeah,
And we'll,
it's like, don't do business with the cartel, and they won't cut your head off.
right.
It's that simple.
No, you can do business with them, just don't compete with them. That's the main.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
So I hear. I don't really know.
Not that he
No,
would know
I
from
don't. I
personal
really
experience. Well, 2 minutes left. Are you going to be going to Anarchapulco? Well, I mean, obviously you're there. I know you're there. But are you going to be going to the Anarchapulco conference this year? I mean, kind of a rhetorical question.
Yeah, I'll definitely be there.
And
Definitely.
will you
yeah.
be speaking again? Will you be talking about your documentary?
It's very likely that I'll be speaking. I don't know that I don't think I'll be talking about the documentary. I'll be talking about something else. But the documentary is sort of an introductory piece to our community. So people are welcome to watch it, and we might do more segments on it too.
If you're not sure about the how certain your speaking engagement is in Acapulco, I have some advice for you. Just slip Jeff Berwick a couple packs of Virginia Slims, and that should secure your spot.
Really?
Well,
He likes those?
I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know what his brand of cigarettes is. No, but
I hear it's Pall Mall, but
Yeah.
oh, that makes sense. Paul Mall. We got a minute left. We'll have the post recording with you. But final thoughts for our live listeners.
yeah, get some Bitcoin. Get some Bitcoin. Probably get some Dash. I'd say Bitcoin, Dash, or
What do you think? Made
Pretty-
safe too, maybe a
more
little bit.
I like MadeSafe. Yeah, I like MadeSafe. But we're at the mid. We're in a Bitcoin bull right now. That's bad. That's usually hurts the altcoin markets. But strap on, because it's gonna get crazy. I mean, we're in the middle of the precipice. We're already flying. Our feet are dangling in the air. So it's gonna be really exciting the next few years.
Did he say strap on?
Strap on. Strap off.
Well, I couldn't agree more. It's going to be exciting. Bitcoin is the way to go, but I definitely agree. have a little exposure to Dash, Made Safe, and maybe some other altcoins because there's room for them too. Juan Galt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with the post record.
Alrighty.
So we'll just spend like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, if that's cool, just talking about your documentary and wrapping up
time.
since we didn't have a full hour with you.
Yeah,
Sure.
and not just the documentary, but what's actually going on down there, how many people have moved down there, and what they, how do they survive, stuff like that.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
just let me know when you're ready, Danny.
Go.
Actually, hold
We've
on.
already
Hold on.
we've already begun.
Oh, we've already begun. We've only just begun. Well, Juan, since we have you for a little bit longer, well, before we get directly into your documentary, as Danny was just saying, you've been living in Acapulco now for 3 years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Pretty much 3 years.
And where did you move from?
I lived in Canada right before it.
Oh,
I
you
lived
said
in for a
Toronto.
couple
That's
years. Yeah.
Awesome. And was there? Acapulco obviously is kind of special, in large part thanks to Jeff Berwick and the efforts he's made to bring voluntarists, anarchists, libertarians to Acapulco. And of course, Acapulco has only also helped facilitate that. When you were in Canada, were there a lot of voluntarist communities, or at least voluntarist organizations or individuals that you ran into, or how was the atmosphere compared?
We built I started a Facebook group over there, and I started kind of collecting these weird unicorn people that are into freedom and stuff. And so we had a little community, probably like 10, 15 people on and off. There's always like nomads, right? There's always sort of travelers that kind of come every once in a while, and then there's always like steadies. And then there's the whole Bitcoin sort of Ethereum crypto community over there that's very active and sort of high level entrepreneur types and engineers and stuff. So that's what I would sort of say is the freedom community over there. I'm not sure if I would put it as voluntarist, but I think a lot of the Bitcoin and the people that I was hanging out with were definitely voluntarist. Maybe not all of them, right? Like the Bitcoin attracts all kinds of people, right? Especially just people that are interested in money and they're practical, right?
Right.
But also a lot of ideologues, right? So.
Yeah, there's a big overlap, but by no means one-to-one. So, so tell us about your experience these past 3 years in Acapulco. We kind of alluded to this on air. Do you feel safe? Is it a relatively prosperous city? How many liberty-minded people have moved there? Has anyone left? Have there been any problems? Just kind of fill us in on what it's been like.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's probably at the peak, outside of the conferences, there's probably been like maybe 30 people, the most that there's ever been. Now, there's people that come and go regularly. Like, there's usually every couple of months, there's 2 people that come down, and they hang out for a few months, and then they leave, and then they come back later on. So there's a few nomads. There's some that never come back, or at least haven't come back yet, right? But there's, but there's also like a core of probably like 20, 25 people, maybe 20, that are definitely here and that are sort of interested in staying here. Like, they're sort of more or less setting their roots here.
Yeah. Michael Nimitz has been there for quite some time, and I first met him in Chile at the Galt's Gulch thing, and he was like down there kind of checking that out, and that's what he was looking for, is somewhere outside of the United States, and so that's where he ended up.
That's
in
kinda
Acapulco.
cool.
But he was there checking it out, and
Yeah.
I kind of didn't fall for that one, thank God.
Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah.
Well, and so 30 people. That's that can grow considerably over the years, and that's still a pretty good community for just people staying in contact with each other while there. Do those 30 people tend to live in the same area? Do they tend to seek each other out and socialize a lot or interact a lot, or what? Or are people kind of atomized and separated? Or tell us about that.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some steady growth. I think it probably started with like 10, 15 people, and we're definitely growing. But it's a slow, steady growth, and then we have all the people that sort of touristically sort of come and hang out and go, right? I think as far as the distribution, we have about probably maybe a third or even close to half on the Diamante area of Acapulco, which is sort of less. It's less city, like sort of the outskirts of the city, and that's where I live, and I like it better 'cause it's a lot more relaxed. It's a lot less city-like. It's a little bit more. There's some sort of suburban type sort of elements to it. There's big malls, but there's also like a very kind of small village type feel on the beach fronts. Just sort of little houses or decent sized houses, and my house is fantastic. It looks like a castle. We call it the Anarch Castle. I will tell you. Yeah, I will tell you what it's like and how much it costs, but people might faint over there. So I'll save you the surprise for when you come to Acapulco.
Like they'll faint by how expensive it is or how cheap it is.
How cheap it is and how big it is.
Wow.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Well, I can imagine because
what do people do to make a living there? I mean,
Yeah.
certainly some of them have moved down there, and they're going to have to sustain themselves by working there. What do they do?
Yeah, I think everybody that comes down here, for the most part, has some savings. Most of us work online in one way or another. Only maybe like a small amount of us make money here, and I speak Spanish fluidly, so I translate for people. I make a little bit of money here and there. There's one guy that's doing a sort of wireless ISP infrastructure here, so he's sort of working in the local economy.
Ryan.
But for the most part, everybody works online.
Is that Ryan Herbison? Or?
Yeah, that's right.
real quick, going back to what we just talked about a moment ago, we stayed with we basically met somebody down there that we kind of knew and got a glimpse of their place, and it was huge. And they told us the price, and it was dirt cheap too. I won't give that away either. Leave that as a surprise. Leave that as an incentive for people to go to Acapulco using the discount code Crypto, get discounted tickets, check out the conference, check out the city, and then maybe you decide to go down there too. But it was dirt cheap a year ago, and the exchange rate has actually improved if you're a dollar user, right?
Yeah, if you're a dollar user, if you're a Bitcoin user, I mean, the Bitcoin exchange rate has doubled in the past year more or less, and then the dollar exchange rate has gone up 50%. So from 15 pesos a dollar to 20 pesos a dollar roughly, right? Maybe 18, 19, it's sort of up there. So I mean, literally, you're just sitting there and you're making money.
Isn't there there's one couple, I guess, that are cooking for people, preparing meals for the community to sustain themselves? Is that?
Yeah, that's right. So they're really interesting. That's Lily and John, and they've been vlogging on Steemit about life in Acapulco for 4 or 5 months, and making a good chunk of their living on just out of making blogs on Steemit. And then they also cook for the community, and so they're always kind of marketing their food and stuff. And some people go up there apparently often enough that it's worth it, and so they go up there and they cook for them and stuff.
Yeah, I noticed I'm part of that group that they kind of created at the last Acapulco, where everybody could kind of talk, and they just kind of use that chat group to say, hey, here's what we're serving for dinner tonight, and
that's really cool. So
they deliver meals and whatever.
All sorts of potential and opportunity there. I like that. Well, so this is all a pretty good lead into your documentary. Now, as already mentioned, your documentary, which you said you finished, 9 months ago?
Yeah, I would something like that. I definitely finished it a while ago. It's been maybe half a year or more.
Awesome. Well, it covers a lot of what we've just been talking about, right? Tell us about that. Tell us what inspired it and when you started it, and then tell us about when we can expect it to be released, if it hasn't been released already.
Oh, it's already been released. It was released. I think it was released on March of 2016. So yeah, it's out there. And what I wanted to answer was the question of why are people moving to Acapulco? Why in the world would a bunch of gringos move to Acapulco? And so that's sort of what we deal with in the documentary, is kind of telling the story of what motivates people, and also telling the story, the journey to get to Acapulco. And so it's a lot of it is dissatisfaction with the United States, or dissatisfaction with the sort of Western imperial powers, right? And the kind of decadence of the Western world, and it's just getting out of the way and letting it fall, right? It's kind of the general feeling of things, and keeping themselves safe, right? I mean, some people, there's plenty of good reasons to be concerned, and so that's kind of the general feeling, but also just wanting to go and build something new, and build something that that with people that you really care about, right? Not being tied by location necessarily, or by culture, or by birthplace, or whatever, but hanging out with people that share your ideology. And the beautiful thing about it to me is that there's a kind of natural selection process in that. Like, people that come here are people that want to come here for the reasons that they would get value out of this community, right? And so those people are very likely to be very good people. And for 80% of the cases, maybe 95% of the cases, that's been the case. We've had a little bit of drama with a few people, but it's never been anything like terrible. It's just like there's drama and interpersonal skill bullshit and
no, we're not on air. You can say
great,
you can say shit, fuck, damn, hell, all those things.
Fuck, Juan.
What the fuck over? Yeah, I mean, we drove down there, or I drove down there, and Chris rode back with me, and the only problem we had is we got robbed by the popo. And still, that was cheaper than a parking ticket, so and much
That's true,
more
I
streamlined. So it's not that bad. I mean, I paid $30 by being robbed by the military, but I mean, I paid for it on the side of the road. I didn't have to go to court, and there was no paperwork. It was streamlined, very efficient.
That's true. Very efficient. Now, we almost probably got executed right then and there, but it was still pretty efficient. Yeah.
I mean, it's hilarious. We have a lot of like funny cop stories down here. So if you do come down, ask people about it, because it's quite hilarious. Like, there's a lot of weird things, right, that people in the United States wouldn't be used to, right? Like, cops here don't feel like they have the kind of power and authority that they feel like they do in the United States.
Yeah.
And so if you challenge them enough, they'll just eventually back off, right?
Really?
You can also they'll just back off, right? There's like tons of funny stories of people doing stuff like that.
One hit me at a traffic light. I was like the first person that stopped at the red light, and the motorcycle cop came around me, and he clipped my bumper with his saddlebag on his motorcycle, and he just like looked back at me and like, what the hell do you want? And he just took off, and I'm like, okay, see ya.
Wow.
Yeah, it's better than arguing with him. Didn't do any damage, so it's no big deal.
We should do an interview with Juan in Acapulco, just interviewing him about all the cop stories, or interviewing a bunch of people about the cop stories. We'll just make our own Mexican cop encounter documentary.
Yeah. How much money have you made off a Bit Club? No.
I actually haven't leveraged it at all. I have an account in there, but I haven't done anything with it.
Yeah, he got me for $99, but that's all he'll get.
Oh yeah, I did spend $100 on it. Yeah. I definitely spent $100 on it.
Well, let's kind of wrap up. Tell us maybe a little bit more about the documentary, like how many people you interviewed, what maybe your most interesting interview or two was, or the most interesting thing you found out about people living down there, and then tell us if you have any future plans for future documentaries, and do you plan on staying in Acapulco kind of indefinitely?
Yeah, I mean, I like this community. I like what we're doing here. I think we're starting to enter a very new and interesting stage, which is we're getting organized. We're starting to talk a lot about sort of getting organized, and that's a lot of fun. It's very interesting. We're talking a lot about octologs and all kinds of sort of organizational strategies and stuff, and so I mean I'm definitely gonna sort of stick around and see where this path leads. As far as the documentary, if people really want me to make more documentaries about Acapulco, I'm happy to do it. I would definitely be crowdfunding it, and it would have to be enough for me to sort of really want to do it. But I think that there's a lot of there's definitely a lot of stuff that we can talk about. In a sense, though, as much as I can make documentaries, it's very difficult to capture the sort of genuine connections and the authentic experiences that people have when they're just hanging out with a bunch of people that in general care about the same things and have in general similar sort of sources, or at least are very well educated in the world. It's very hard to capture that in a documentary. So the best way, if you're curious, come down, hang out with us, reach out to us on Facebook or whatever, right? We're all on Facebook, and we have, emails and stuff. So you can find us if you look, and come hang out, right? And I mean, as far as we do have we did a 1 hour or so live group call with everybody in the community at the time, right after the documentary came out, which is also my YouTube channel. where you can check it out, and we answer a lot of the questions that are not answered in the documentary. Because the documentary is sort of like, why are people coming here, and how do you get there, and what is the future might look like, right? But then the second part is sort of, okay, we've been here for a while now. What has life actually been like, and how have we dealt with a lot of the concerns and challenges? And so that goes in pretty good depth. It's